Hi, and welcome to THORsday Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And in the show notes below, there's a pre-order link where you can pre-order the full version of I Am Stan, which will be available in September. So here it is, Journey into Mystery with Thor, number 114, the start of another unforgettable super epic. For the first time in recorded history, the titanic thunder god battles a deadly foe who has every bit of raw strength, every single superpower which Thor himself possesses. You'll never forget this startling shocker. The stronger I am, the sooner I die. And we have the little stamp for the Merry Marvel Marching Society wants you. And yeah, like, you know, a theme in a lot of the issues we've been talking about on this show has been like, okay, you're starting to see the pieces fall into place. You're starting to see, you know, that sort of Marvel formula that really comes to basically dominate comics for the next few decades, largely unaltered, largely following like the template set down here. You're seeing all the little pieces coming together. Now, like, we're past that. Like, we are in it. The pieces, they're all there, you know, with an issue like this. The cover, you know, looks like, you know, this is what a Marvel comic looks like. You know, the use of, like, the richness of the colors, this sort of, you know, deep blue with, like, you know, purples coming in, and then using sort of, you know, like a gray wash, using sort of like the black plate, the K plate, you know, to give like just another level to the chiaroscuro of the colors. Like this is the Marvel Comics aesthetic. And then the stories, you know, with this story now, like we've had two-parters, we've had, you know, characters making, you know, return appearances, but when it's talking about super epic, we're in the super epic era now with this issue. It starts off a story, introduces a crazy villain, and then doesn't resolve it. Like the villain is still, you know, still out there, and a new like plot element. The story pivots to a new plot element. The larger story is going to be sort of simmering in the background, and to me, that's like, you know, that's one of the big parts of the Marvel puzzle is just the ongoing epic and not feeling the need to resolve a storyline in one issue, 2 issues, 3 issues, but keep this big pot boiling. The stronger I am, the sooner I die. Introducing the absorbing man, whose superpower is possibly the most unbeatable of any living mortal. Written at white heat by Stan Lee. Drawn with purple passion by Jack Kirby. Inked with golden serenity by Chick Stone. Lettered on a blue Monday by Sam Rosen. You know, more of the sort of playfulness with the credits. And again, with the credits, Jack Kirby is, at the very least, the co-writer of these stories, though he's not credited here. The Tales of Asgard story does have the sort of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby co-production credit, which kind of becomes, you know, the standard for a little while in their collaboration, which I think is a much more honest way of describing their partnership. Although one of the problems with even that description is it's not explicit enough. I think, you know, to be fair, you have to explicitly spell out that Jack Kirby is co-writer. You can't leave that stuff to chance. It became, you know, the subject of, you know, lawsuits and, you know, gray area. I think, you know, Jack Kirby said something about, you know, you can hide an army of assassins in, you know, in a poorly worded contract, you know, something like that. We start off, again, with another one of those sort of James Bond openings where you're right in the action, in medias res of, you know, Thor taking down some bad guy, some situation that, you know, is just sort of like a warm-up before the rest of the story gets started. Let's begin with a bang as the mighty Thunder God pursues an enemy agent who attempts to flee from Thor's awesome wrath in a souped-up bucket racing car. Got the picture? Then let's go. Kirby loves drawing these mean machines, these sort of homemade cars. The bucket T, just a great visual. And Thor pulls this guy right out of his seat. He's shooting at him. The hammer is being thrown right at you to the point where you're staring right down the barrel of it. It's you don't see the handle. You see like the little thong, coming off the side there. But don't usually see this kind of thing in a comic, until Kirby comes along, and it's like, you're this guy, and you're about to get hit in the face with a magic hammer. He ducks. The stuff it does hit explodes. He's got his gun ready. Loki's watching the whole thing. Loki's showing up in sort of a new costume, which I think might have debuted an issue ago, if I'm not mistaken. But, Kirby's always tinkering with the costumes of his characters. And I'm sure he would have loved to redesign Thor's costume too. And later on, he pitched or prepared a pitch for a Norse mythology comic that he possibly could have done at DC, and instead of the lead figure being Thor, it was Sigurd, and I feel like that was like an opportunity to redesign Thor, so we get a sense of what that might have looked like. And Loki's watching, and he wants to thwart Thor, so his little Visi screen, this crystal that he watches through, he can actually like send stuff through it. So he sends this little vial that he has with these little these calipers or whatever, and drops it, and it creates this gas to like sort of slow Thor down, make him not quite at his A game as he's fighting this guy. The guy throws a grenade. Thor puts up a little shield, makes it explode. I love this kind of stuff. He breaks a trunk off of the tree, which is kind of like a fork shape, and this guy's trapped, and Loki's like, shit, it didn't work. Now he's thinking like, how do I really, burn Thor? How do I really get Thor's goat? And I mean, look at this art. The art is beautiful. Chickstone's work is only getting better. It's just got like more subtlety to it, more range. Everybody's getting comfortable. Jack's getting comfortable, Stan's getting comfortable, and Chickstone's getting comfortable. The team on this book is really gelling. And, pretty soon, I think the next issue is inked by somebody else, maybe like George Inky Roussos or some, but I think this might be Chick's last issue, or his last issue's coming up, and eventually the handoff is going to go to Coletta. So we're seeing like the height of a certain aesthetic for Thor, and so Loki's brooding, and now again we've seen this in other issues before, but with Loki deciding to give a mortal his little power boost. He's sort of stuck in his little lab, and he's come up with this thing that's gonna give this guy a jolt. And we've seen Loki give like power boosts to different characters, but I think this might be the first like origin of an ongoing Marvel character where Loki is the source of this character's new powers, rather than just like amplifying an existing villain's powers. He's actually giving a villain, giving a new character their sort of origin story, which will happen again, a bunch more times in the series. Just one that comes to mind is like the Wrecker. He sticks something in Crusher Creel's drink at the prison. Beautiful 3-panel sequence, these animation-like sequences that Kirby does from time to time. And he feels the power. He's strong. They shoot him with bullets, and all of a sudden he gets hit by a bullet, and now he's made out of steel. It's turned to steel, like our bullets. So we're seeing the origin of the Absorbing Man. One of the sort of, Jack Kirby villains, one of the Jack Kirby characters that, like, to my mind has, like, one of the more interesting powers. I like this idea that everything he touches, he sort of embodies that material. And the Absorbing Man, the power at least was shown, I think really well in the first Hulk movie, where Nick Nolte plays a couple different roles. It's sort of a couple different, comic book characters in one, but he's definitely got the powers of the Absorbing Man. And if you were, going to give him a name, he'd be the Absorbing Man, even though he's not Crusher Creel. If you haven't seen that movie, go check that out to see sort of a cinematic version of these powers. So now he's busting through the walls, and he becomes the same material as the walls. And then Don Blake is mending the arm of this reporter who's been injured, and Don Blake is asking him, oh, how'd you're a reporter, how'd this happen? And he was chasing a story, and he was telling him the story of it's the story of an escaped convict. And so this is kind of this becomes the sort of tip, that this is the way, Don Blake has his ears to the streets, and hearing about, oh, here's this sounds like a job for Thor. I'll go take care of that. And this character kind of, at least for a little while, becomes an ongoing character. And it feels to me like sort of, a deliberate infusion of like, okay, who's Don Blake's civilian informant or whatever, sort of, kind of, I guess, kind of like a Commissioner Gordon or something. And I remember when I was a kid and I would play the Marvel Comics role-playing game that, like, there were a bunch of, things you had to decide on your character. And then one of the things you had to decide on for your character, if you were creating sort of like an original superhero, was who is your sort of like civilian informant or whatever. Who's your character who's not the love interest, not the archenemy, not the sidekick or whatever, but who's the person who's just got sort of like an ordinary non-superhero job, who can sort of help sort of kick off a story, maybe be sort of like, I heard there's something or other going down, and why don't you check it out? And this guy kind of even sort of looks a little like Commissioner Gordon, becomes sort of like a Commissioner Gordon, where it's like this character sticks around for a little while, but is eventually jettisoned because Kirby, he might come up with like a really cool setup, a really cool formula, but his sort of, restless creativity makes it hard for him to just stay with it. And instead, he sort of moves on to the next thing, which is usually 10 times better than, whatever he had established before. He's moving on to like better and better, cooler and cooler things. But so this becomes a status quo of sorts for a while. We get a little bit of, romance, reminding you that Jane Foster and Don Blake are a couple, and they have their, cute banter. Maybe almost like a little bit like Don Blake's got a little bit of like Sean Connery here. This is almost like a James Bond and Moneypenny kind of thing. Another transformation sequence, 3-panel transformation sequence, a little different than how we've seen it before. He's in a standing position and slams that cane down. Now he's flying around faster than a locomotive because, remember, part of Thor's DNA is Superman. The Thor comic is just a better Superman comic than the actual Superman comic. And now he's going to go check out that escaped convict that he had heard about from that reporter. And now he's in the mountain swamp area. And I love this panel because it's almost one of those like a Where's Waldo? Like, where's the absorbing man? And he's kind of, camouflaged here in the rocks, and then boom, he reveals himself. I love the iconography of the Crusher Creel character, of this sort of like, oh, brother, where art thou? Kind of like 1920s prisoner, with the sort of striped pants, no shirt, and then his ball and chain, the sort of like, symbol of imprisonment, and bam, their two weapons collide. Thor's shocked that like this ordinary looking ball and chain seems to be a match for his hammer, and they're going at it. And now Thor's, creating his cyclone, and when Crusher Creel's ball and chain hits that cyclone, now, his ball and chain can do what Thor's hammer does, and he creates a cyclone. And now this reporter's watching from the background, and this time he's not fucking around. He comes with dynamite to stop Crusher Creel. Now, in his thought balloons, he's like, oh, lucky for me, I just happen to have some of these dynamite sticks. But I would guess, this is he didn't accidentally bring dynamite sticks. He's got a plan for how to take down Crusher Creel. That Crusher Creel is like, he's no ordinary bad guy. He's already had an encounter with them and gotten multiple fractures, a la the Death Wish of Terrible Turpin, and he knows, he needs to up his game if he wants to take this guy on. And so now he sees, Thor involved with this guy, and he throws the dynamite seemingly accidentally. He throws the dynamite and loses his footing in the cyclone, and it's nothing to Crusher Creel. He throws the dynamite right back. Thor pulls him in the cyclone, the vortex, to shield him. The explosion goes off. Thor's like, this guy's too dangerous. I've got it. I'll take it from here, but you got to go warn the authorities that he's loose. And so Thor's out there, and he sees this guy who looks like he just saw a ghost. And Thor's like, this guy must have had an encounter with the absorbing man, because he looks like, this guy kind of looks sort of like a Jack Kirby stand-in. And he's like, yeah, I did see the absorbing man. He went that way. And now we see that a car pulling up to a gas station. And, this is like, something in RoboCop or something. He smashes the gas tanks. It's Crusher Creel. He smashes the gas tanks. And he's laughing and pulling away, hoping the whole place will just explode. And now this is sort of like a Marvel thing too. He's imagining the crazy crime wave he's going to go on. This is his plan. And if this plan comes to fruition, it's going to mean bad things for planet Earth. He's going to use his powers to break into the bank vaults, because who could stop him? Stuff his bag full of cash. But he's not just looking for the cash. He's got a larger plan. And pretty soon he's going to, find some country somewhere, take over, destroy their military, and become, a despot, a third world dictator. In the rearview mirror, here comes Thor. Really great shot here. And then Thor smashes the car with his hammer, and now it's mano a mano. Thor lifts his hammer, and boom! I love the deep perspective on this. The hand and hammer in the foreground, creating this shockwave in the earth, opening up this like chasm. Just give you a little sense of what's going on in the Fantastic Four at this point. Behold a distant star. And beautiful. Maybe the panel of the issue, and just great. I mean, this is full on Marvel stuff. Deep shadows, and whatever Thor can throw at the absorbing man, takes it and throws it right back. And now they're fighting. And as they're sort of wrestling, now he's absorbing the strength of Thor. So he's as strong as Thor. They're tussling, and this fog sort of comes in, and without the caption up here, this scene might just occupy a short moment. But Stan adds this, which I think gives it a little more, juices it a little bit, gives it a little more oomph. And the absorbing man's boast proves to be true, as the immortal Avenger and the evil super menace battle for hour after hour, neither one tiring, neither one yielding, neither one noticing the mysterious fog. And so this fog comes, and in the fog, everything starts to become hazy. And when Thor steps out of the fog, he's not in that, he's not in America anymore. Now he's standing on the Rainbow Bridge, and he's not with the absorbing man anymore. He's by himself, and he's saying, Balder, why did you do this? Why did you summon me to Asgard? And he's like, Thor, big trouble. Whatever you were dealing with before, you're going to want to drop everything for this. Loki has kidnapped Jane Foster, and he's holding her hostage, here in Asgard. And Thor's like, okay, absorbing man's pretty bad. He's got to be stopped, but first things first. And so he hops on the horse that Balder provides and goes running off. And the absorbing man is sort of, when that fog passes, he's all by himself, right where he started. And he's like, oh, Thor ran away. He figures Thor made that fog as like, to cover his getaway. And he's like, that means I beat him. I'm the first guy in the world ever to make Thor run for cover like a whipped dog. And if I can beat him, now I know I can beat anyone. And I mean, the absorbing man does become one of the powerhouses of, Marvel Comics. And so, now he's basically going to be, rampaging unchecked. He sees that reporter. I'll polish him off without even taking a breath. Now he's turning, he touches a tree, turns into wood. He touches some rocks, turns into rocks, and he sees a house, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna set up shop in that abandoned house. Maybe it's the house like Mr. Hyde and the Human Cobra had been in a couple issues ago. Back in Asgard. Let us fight at your side, Thunder God, for you go to do battle with the evil one on his home grounds. None can defeat Loki in his own stronghold. Thor can. And so Thor's going to go riding off into battle at Loki's castle. There we have it. So, what a cliffhanger. I mean, I can't wait to see what's going on in Loki's castle. This is going to be awesome. And what kind of, craziness the absorbing man is going to be up to. This great cliffhanger. And I got to say, I've been enjoying this series up to this point. And I have already read the issue after that, this isn't my first time, reading most of these issues. But I still kind of forget what happens. I have a vague idea of what happens next, but just in the rereading of all this stuff, this series, I've been excited to find out what happens next. But this is the most excited I've been about, like, wanting to find out what happens next, wanting to read that next issue. Like, I am fully hooked at this point. I'll probably read the next issue like as soon as I'm done with this video. I'm looking at the cover. It's across the room in here. I'm looking at the cover and, like, yeah, it looks good. A real classic. We got the Goblin and the Gangsters. Yeah, we're only up to the appearance of Kazar in the X-Men. And now the Golden Apples, a fabulous featurette by the greatest names in comicdom, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So yeah, that dual credit. Inking Vince Colletta, lettering Artie Simic. So it's a Tales of Asgard story. We have Iduna, the goddess, with her golden apples, and she's wearing this sort of red cloak, and there's Håkon, the hunter, is asking her what she's up to. And she's like, oh, I'm delivering these golden apples to Asgard to give them to Odin. And, this is, part of Norse mythology. This is the source of the immortality of the Norse gods, are these golden apples. They have to eat them every so often to, like, recharge their immortality. And I think we've seen Iduna in a previous Tales of Asgard installment. So she's walking through the forest, and then Fenris, the Asgardian wolf, sees what she's up to, and he wants those apples for himself. He turns into sort of a werewolf, a wolf man, and offers to, escort her through the forest, but she says she doesn't need any protection. And he's like, ooh, what do you got there? He opens up the basket, sees the golden apples, and she's like, step back. And he's kind of, starts to get a little feral, reveals, his true form, and is about to attack when Håkon the hunter swings by and throws his axe at Fenris. Fenris shrinks himself down, hoping to avoid the axe, which he does for a moment. But Håkon's axe is enchanted by Odin, and it can pursue its target to the edge of Asgard. Where it goes, it's swinging around, and Fenris knows he's had it. This thing's on his trail, until it finally slashes through the very fabric of infinity itself to plunge down towards its craven target. And now the slain Fenris is, in sort of like the banished by his death to this sort of nether realm, this purgatory of Asgard. Thus, the menace of Fenris is ended as the evil wolf god is hurled into far Varenheim, the seething, shadowy land of the lost, which lies near the netherworld at the farthest reaches of the endless cosmos. And, they live happily ever after. Lo, our tale is done, a tale which has been handed down through the ages, from far off Asgard to the fertile green hills of earth. A tale which has been changed countless times in the retelling, until the mortals of today lull their children to sleep with it, calling it the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood. Thus, though the names and the details may change, the legends themselves can never die. And this is an ongoing theme in Kirby's work, most memorably, I'd say, used in the Eternals, of sort of, these familiar stories we know have an origin that is lost to time, and then Kirby tells that story. It also makes me think that this Tales of Asgard must have made a big impression on Neil Gaiman. He's a huge Kirby fan, huge Norse mythology fan, not too long ago put out a book of Norse mythology. And then also in The Sandman, there's sort of like a story of the true story of Little Red Riding Hood, where he sort of, tells this sort of like the lost version of Little Red Riding Hood, compared to the telling that we know. And I feel like, that this might have been, the seed that was planted, that was maybe in the back of his mind when he was making it. So then we get the letters section. Who says this isn't the Marvel Age of Comics? The hammer strikes, the Merry Marvel Marching Society order form. And there you have it, a great issue. I can't wait to read the next one. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. In the show notes below, you'll find a pre-order link where you can pre-order the full version of I Am Stan. I'll see you next Thursday.